Alright guys, are you ready? The Hell Let Loose developers released a new dev brief with a lot of new information today. It includes additional responses to the previous AMA with the devs, information on what the team is working on, future plans for content, and also feedback on the last PTE. So let's go over the most important takeaways in this video, but for full information check out the latest dev brief. So first of all I want to say this stuff really excites me. It gives me a lot of hope for the future of Hell Let Loose, and to me it shows that the devs have really listened to all of the complaints and feedback from the community. Instead of pushing additional rushed content for monetization, they've taken a step back. The focus is going to be largely on improving the foundations of the game, improving the gameplay, bugs and performance, and gradually more content will be added. Let's first take a look at what the focus is going to be in terms of optimization and fixes, including the British rework and the many other things they listed. And then let's talk about the future content that is planned, or at least known. And finally let's talk about the biggest feedback regarding the PTE that took place recently. So first the optimization and fixes, and let's start with the British rework. So the release of the British was very underwhelming to say the least. When the patch released, the faction was basically broken, because the guns were not properly balanced, you could not even hit stuff, even the iron sight kind of blocked your view so you could not even properly aim. What I expected the devs to do is just fix these kind of things, but they're going to do it completely differently. They're gonna put in a lot of work and it will actually be released in phases, but you will probably be excited to know that they're going to make it historically accurate. So it's not like currently in the game that in every theater of war all weapons will be the same for all factions. For the British they're actually going to make the weapons map specific. So the North African map will have different weapons from, for example, the Operation Market Garden map drill. And it's interesting though, because if you look at the additional weaponry they're gonna add, man, especially the Brits here that play the game have been asking for these historically accurate and the right weapons all this time, and they actually listened and they're gonna add them. And more importantly, for the many people who complained about it, the Bren will have a bipod. At least they're testing it, so I think many people will be happy with that. Also they're gonna add specific sub-variants for the British version of American weapons, and of course they're gonna add proper tropical uniforms, not only for the British but also for the German Africa Corps. So this will also add enormously to the immersion, and it's really something that the community had asked for. And to be fair, it should have been in the game actually from the first moment, but I'm happy that they're actually gonna work on it now. Additional armor is also being developed, and the community can even give their input about it, as you can see. So definitely vote on that, and man, I think many people will be excited about this. The Firefly tank actually that's in the game now got a lot of criticism, and the focus is going to be on fixing this specific tank as well. It's also a good reason to look at the broader armor system, and more about that later. Another thing that's also dear to my heart is actually the rework of the recon and artillery system, because currently, it's focused on spawn killing. And it has mentioned something interesting because they have a couple of different options they want to try as a solution. But on paper everything sounds like it could work, but after you test, a lot of stuff might not work as intended. So what they want to do is actually develop a couple of different solutions, including for example self-propelled artillery or mortars or something else. And they're gonna run these through the PTE and everyone can try it, and based on these results they will choose a solution. I personally also think that's the right way to go about it, because it's quite a delicate mix in terms of the meta, but I'm very excited they're actually seriously looking at finally improving this system, so I'm very curious about the PTEs involving that. The devs also mentioned something about an improved node system, because if you look at the early access period of Hell Let Loose, nodes, but also garrisons, and all the different systems had all kind of different ways they worked back in the past. And they actually want to improve the node system, because now it's kind of still, you just build them, leave them there, and nothing really happens with it. And they want to try and find a way to make it a bit more dynamic, maybe making the location where they are more important. And I think that could work quite well, because the nodes already have a specific bonus in the game that not many people know about necessarily, I think. And that is that you can actually reduce the cooldown on the support supplies or in ammo boxes and stuff. But if you actually have a reason to put them further down in the map, you can actually use that. So I'm kind of interested to see where it goes in terms of the node system. And that also goes for the garrison system, because they're actually thinking of reworking that. They developed a new kind of garrison, but they don't want to say too much about it yet. But man, if the garrison system itself could be improved, that would definitely change up the meta. So I want to know more about that idea, but they didn't give much details away. Another thing that will excite many players is that they're actually working on an improved progression system, and it seems like this on one hand will be map-specific loadouts, so you actually have multiple kind of loadouts in one specific class that you can grind for basically, and they're also looking at implementing a way to earn XP for other classes. And this is something that's always requested by players that like to play as squad leader or commander, because if you're level 10 in these classes, and these classes are really needed in every game, then you cannot level your other classes, and it's also one big reason that people don't want to play squad leader, because they still have other classes to level. So I think many people will find this a very good addition to the game if you can actually earn XP for another class while playing as squad leader or commander. Then they're also reworking the armor system. And I think this will really excite armor players, because the devs have mentioned that they actually want to implement open and closing the hatches on your tank, so you can actually, as the driver for example, hang out of your tank, actually see what's happening. And that could also lead to really interesting and funny moments where you can just shoot a tank driver in the head. I think that could be hilarious. There are also talked about including flamethrower tanks. And not even that, also tank destroyers like the Jackson and Hellcat. And the goal of that is to make the tank meta a bit more interesting than only having light, medium and heavy tanks. They actually want to make a better mix. So for example, not only having a tank with really strong armor and a really strong cannon, but also having one with very light armor and a very strong cannon. This should make the armor system much more dynamic and a much more fun balance. Another much requested feature is a server browser for the console versions. And the devs have already mentioned also in the past that it's a very heavy workload rewriting the entire infrastructure around this, but there actually could be some other solutions that could have a similar result. So they're actually thinking about implementing map voting, so you at least have some level of control about what you want to play, but they could include a server browser maybe at some point, who knows. And additionally, of course, they're gonna focus on the voice communication, because there's always so many problems with them. These days, actually, every time I load into a new map, if I stay in the server, I have the voice communication bug. It's really annoying. Luckily, there's the workaround in the options, but still, it shouldn't happen. And also rubber banding, they're really looking into, so I hope they can fix it. In terms of future content, the new roadmap still has to be developed, because after all the player backlash during the previous patches, while they cancelled the entire roadmap, they want to go back, fix the game as is, and from that point on add more and more content. Still, they are working on a couple of things, so, well, the roadmap itself. But currently the team is also working on, of course, a British rework with additional weapons and vehicles. So it will not only be fixes, but actually additional content. And they're working on a couple of different new 50 versus 50 combined arms maps, including Mortain, which seems to be a new Normandy map that takes place in the summer of 1944. It's probably about Operation Lüttich, I think, which was a counter-offensive by the Germans after the D-Day operations. And I'm pretty much into the Western Europe theater, so let's get going with this map. An additional thing they want to add is a better dive to prone mechanic, so no dolphin diving. That's really something that doesn't belong in Hell Let Loose. I did like the feature a lot, so I was kind of sad that it was taken out, so I hope to see it back soon. And also interesting to hear is that they would like to include a lot in the future, even the Pacific Theater, which I really want the most. Man, jungle maps must be awesome, right? But they want to take a measured approach this time, because they learned a lot from the British DLC and rush content, and I do agree with it. I mean, how Hell Let Loose is at the moment, it's already an awesome game, and as long as they don't break it and do it in a measured way, it should be fine in the end, you know. So finally, what was the biggest feedback from the players that tried the PTE? And there's a couple of things. Over half of the players reported that the micro stutters had improved, which is always good. 75% of the players reported that the widescreen support was much better and more comparable to other games in the market. I don't have one, but if you have one, congratulations. More than 3/4 of the players reported that the current reload speed of the Panther felt just right. I don't play tanks much, but congratulations on that as well, armor players. And most players felt the British weapons felt much better. Still, the iron sights were a bit too large and there needs to be some work done on the zeroing of the guns, but generally it felt much better already. And then some players shared some ideas on how to improve the firing range that will be added to the game. I don't know, I'm not gonna use it anyway. So this was a summary of the things mentioned in the dev brief that stood out to most to me. Definitely check out the dev brief yourselves, as the devs have elaborated on a lot of the technical aspects of the stuff that I mentioned, so if you find that interesting, you should definitely read it for yourself. The way this dev brief was presented with very in-depth reasoning and a humble approach gave me the feeling that the devs truly understand what the community wants. I don't mind waiting a bit for new content, a few new maps are fine for me. Most importantly, I want an already great game to become much better. There's so much potential in Hell Let Loose already. So what do you guys think of all this news? Are you excited? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching guys, subscribe for more and see you in the next one.